27 Love in another elevator. Not because they have too much mind, but too little. Then Elaine stopped to look out of the window. She surveyed the reduced committee group that formed the council in the small town in Saskatchewan. When she entered politics, the idea was to get a foothold into the male-dominated world of local decision-making, not that there were many decisions to be made, and even fewer funds to implement them with, yet as the years went by the numbers of males on the council, just as the number of testosterone-wielding subjects in the streets of the town of Love, dwindled, now there were none. Why had all the men gone, and why were there only women in Love? She tried to return to her speech. As was commonplace in these events, the majority of spectators were left open-mouthed, not due to her eloquent persiflage, but moreover as a result of her failure to make a point. She had already meandered into the realm of nonsensical piffle before that phrase popped into her head. Was that Lawrence? She asked herself. Composing her thoughts, she managed to at least entertain the idea of a point. Why does love take our men? What is stifling them? Our population has gone from a healthy 68 down to 43. Males cannot survive her after they reach the age of majority. They become overwhelmed with a sense of foreboding, so I ask, why do men fear love? She looked to her committee members and all three failed to come up with a suitable response. When the men started to wane, it was the elderly first. They lacked the strength to survive in love and often had been left alone in love. Nobody took too much notice, as towns like Love could see their demographics thrown off the scale with a bad bout of flu or the right team winning at ice hockey. However, this time it was different. Love was making the older males waste away, and love was taking its toll on the younger specimens. Only the children were able to carry on as normal, but again they were few and far between. 6 male children under the age of 18 lived happily unaffected by love. It was once the male celebrated his 18th birthday that love began to take its toll on the men. Some tried to leave but always ended up wandering back, bewildered. Others withered and became part of the snow, as if love was too much for them. Gloria had a pencil in her mouth. Like Elaine, her husband had gone, and her eldest son, she had another boy who was 16 and was keen to find a solution. At first, they took on the idea of bringing in people from outside, to make the locals fight for love, but the newcomers were overcome by love as soon as they entered the municipality. For the time being, love had closed its doors. She looked up. We have all lost something in love. Something that was dear to us, and some of us are awaiting our next loss. We know from past experience that time is ticking away, and if we don't do something soon, our children will become men, and as we know, there are no men in love. Elaine looked at Gloria and her colleagues. We have studied everything. If we allow the outside world to know what's wrong with love, the place will become a circus. There is always a solution, it's always just out of reach. We just need to think. Let's get everyone in here. As the room filled with all the town's inhabitants, they split into groups to go over, once again, the details of their men's disappearances. It was not exactly death that befell them, just a death-like aura that pervaded their bodies and meant they were, to all intents and purposes, dead, so you could say that the foregoing is somewhat relative. Elaine insisted that they took a scientific approach. When did the first man go? She asked. End of 2002. Old Jed, but he was 92. Found him crying next to the old wheat pool elevator. A lady responded. My Gary was crying about the elevator too when he stopped. Just said I can't believe they closed it, and it was like he was shut down too. All around the room the women agreed that the first disappearances were due to the closure of the Saskatchewan wheat pool elevator at Choiceland. Since its construction, in 1947, the elevator had, so to speak, put the town on the map, a small dark speck on the top corner, but, nonetheless, there was love. It brought farmers to the town and allowed for local commerce to flourish. The population soured over 100 and many winter nights were made cozy next to the fire at Jigger's Tavern. Many of the town's residents and some of the ladies still in the council chambers today were the products of those heady nights in the tavern after a particularly successful fair. The grain shifting between towns without overlooking love and creating a pleasant place to live and grow. Love had been rejuvenated, even the older folk seemed to have let a decade or two slip. Astounded travelers looked on aghast as happy couples strolled love's streets. Even as hard times raised other villages, love continued to flourish. Love could not be stopped, love was going places. Then there was talk of closing down the elevator, talk of moving the grain markets, talk of doing things without love. All the trade was moved to Prince Albert, more than 100 kilometers away. Love began to suffer. Finally, in 2002, the closure was announced. Over the years, the male residents began to lose their verve and slowly drift into the limbo-like state they found themselves in now. "Let's go and see them," Gloria suggested. "We might get some inspiration." Nobody had a better idea, and all the ladies agreed that there was something comforting about seeing the men, even though they were preserved in a chamber above the council offices, waiting, hoping, that one day a solution would bring them back to love. And there they were, the men, all aged 18 and over. All alive yet effectively dead. Gloria's boy and the next oldest began to cry. This was their fate, this was what love had to do with them. "Build another elevator," Elaine exclaimed. "This is not Field of Fucking Dreams." A voice retorted. "I'm serious. They all went this way when the elevator closed, why can't we bring them back with love's elevator?" Elaine demanded. "You have a degree in sociology, right?" said Edna, a noted opponent of Elaine's work. "Anyone else have any building experience? Any engineers? How do you propose we build a grain elevator without outside help? For 15 years, we have kept the men here, safe from the outside world. No one can know." She finished. "I know no one can know. We can build it. If we build it, they will return and finish the elevator. They will make it work. They never wanted to say goodbye to love." Elaine added. "That's probably enough milking the love gag, don't you think? At the beginning it was quite amusing, now it's just getting tiresome. I'm prepared to do anything for my boy, he has less than a year before he ends up like the rest of them. I don't know how to do it, maybe there is a video on YouTube, but until someone comes up with a better plan, we're going to build a grain elevator. What's more, it's spring now, this is the time to do it. If we wait till the winter, the task will be even harder. All we have to do is build the second best grain elevator that love has ever known." Gloria effectively seconded Elaine's proposal. Elaine and Gloria walked over to their family's section, and told their husbands and children that they were going to bring the elevator back. For a brief moment, Gloria saw a glimmer in her husband's eye when she mentioned the project. Maybe it was the glimmer she wanted to see, maybe it was nothing, but inspiration was thin on the ground these days, and she took it. Making sure no one heard her, she quipped, "Soon we'll be together in love," and laughed to herself. The work was hard. They had to invest all of the town's budget and their own savings. They had to buy the products for a grain elevator from Saskatoon and Ribera without drawing attention to their town's plight. The women had spent years steadfastly acting for the benefit of the outside world as if the men remained active. Their salaries were paid every month, rosters were created so that they could use public services and health care, tax declarations submitted so that the rest of Canada would think this meaningless place in the middle of nowhere was busy getting on with being a meaningless place in the middle of nowhere. Fake news stories were published at first, but soon after, the wise decision to close the local paper was made. Love was not a story, and there was no story in love. Building a grain elevator from scratch is quite a challenge for people with no formal training in engineering, yet as they began, each of the women felt a natural calling to perform a single task that would help the project as a whole. As the spring turned into summer, work progressed at an astounding rate. One night, as they celebrated in the council chambers, liquid began to seep through the ceiling. Instinctively, Gloria and Elaine tasted the liquid. It tasted sweet. They could not describe what it tasted of, but if they were forced to do, they agreed that it tasted of life. They raced upstairs and saw the pods of the youngest and fittest males beginning to melt. Life was returning to the youth's faces. They stopped their festivities and returned to work. The liquid was now flooding into the rooms from above. A group of women collected it and shared it out between the workers. Immediately they felt stronger and younger and put in more productive shifts. The rest of the liquid was smeared onto the pods, the owners of which faces began to change instantly. With the youths now out of their pods and strong, work advanced at a startling pace so that at the end of the summer, the elevator was fully operational and all the pods began to melt. The last pod to melt was that of old Jed, who now 109 years old, could easily pass for 87. They helped old Jed to control dashboards so that he could be the one who sent the first grain package via the elevator for commercial purposes. The town of Love was alive again. People danced and frolicked in the streets as all those wasted years were made up for with a youthful exuberance many had not seen in years. The remainder of the liquid from the pods was stored and frozen just in case the future became less bright. Winter came and went without a hitch in Love, and the townspeople began to plan for an expansion of the elevator. For the first time in years, the maternity department had work to do. The first birth after the construction of the elevator brought the town twins, in one swoop, a 4% population increase. Gloria and Elaine sat content in the council chambers, looking out over the balcony onto the square as couples danced in the delightfully clement spring evening warmth. "We did it," Gloria said. "We sure did. You know what I always said to you all, don't you?" Elaine replied. "What was that?" asked Gloria. "Don't give up on love," she said, and the pair fell about laughing.